How big is the USA actually? That's the video we're going to be checking out today. Being from the UK, I really generally don't know how big the USA is. I've never been there. It's definitely a place I want to go to. If you're new to the channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the video. But yeah, let's just jump straight into the video.
The United States is currently the world's sole superpower with military installations around the world. As a country, its geography spans from subtropical forests to rolling plains, scorching deserts, and Arctic wastes. But just how big is the US really in comparison to the rest of the world? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infographics Show. Today, we're taking a look at how big the US really is. The US is approximately 5,680,000 square miles, with terrain that varies dramatically. Only Russia at 10.6 million square miles and Canada at 6,205,000 square miles are larger than the US.
I didn't know Canada was bigger, but I'm guessing in Canada you got a lot of areas that are uninhabitable. I'm guessing in Canada you got a lot of areas that you can't live in, so there's going to be less people. And same as Russia. I'm sure Russia would have. I mean, Russia is huge, but it's got loads of areas that people just can't live there. I didn't know that about Canada. I always thought Canada would have been smaller. I don't know why. I just something I always thought, I suppose.
Three biggest states: Alaska at 663,000 square miles, Texas at 270,000 square miles,
I guessed it about
and
Texas.
California at 160,000 square miles.
Okay,
combined
California's
would
the
be the
biggest.
17th largest nation in the world, immediately after Sudan at 1.15 million square miles, and right before Libya at 1 million square miles. In total, the US is larger than the 107 smallest countries in the world combined. With about 327 million people, the United States is also the third most populated nation on Earth, having a total of 4.28% of the total world population. With a net yearly migration rate of approximately 900,000 people, the US is by far the one place the rest of the world wants to live, with Germany coming in second at 350,000 migrants, and Turkey in third with 325,000 migrants.
So 350,000 in comparison to 900,000. That's just crazy. That's crazy.
The US, 83% of the population lives in cities, with its three most populated cities being New York City with 8.5 million people, Los Angeles with 4 million people, and Chicago with 2.7 million people. All combined, the population of the US's three biggest cities is equal to the population of Chad with 14.5 million people.
Mad.
Just these three cities alone are also more populated than Cuba with 11.5 million people, Belgium with 11.3 million people, and Greece with 11.2 million people.
I don't know why I always thought Cuba was a lot bigger than that. But yeah, that's crazy. The same size as a country.
When counting the greater metropolitan area, New York City is the 10th largest city in the world, with a total population of 18.6 million people, just behind Cairo with 18.8 million people, and just ahead of Dhaka with 17.6 million people. This would make the greater New York City area the 63rd largest country in the world, just ahead of Syria with 18 million people. The US is the world's largest economy with a gross domestic product of $20.4 trillion, or 23.3% of the total global economy. China is just behind the US at $14 trillion and 16.1% of the total global economy. When measured by purchasing power parity, or the price of goods and services versus individual incomes, the US comes at number 2 to China, whose GDP PPP is $25.2 trillion. This means that while the Chinese economy is about 30% smaller than the US's, Chinese individuals have on average 20% greater purchasing power in their own country. The three biggest economies within the U.S. states are California with a GDP of $2.6 trillion, Texas with a GDP of $1.6 trillion, and New York with a GDP of $1.5 trillion. Altogether, these three states would be the world's third largest economy, just ahead of Japan with a GDP of $5 trillion. California's economy alone is as big as the United Kingdom's. Texas's is as big as Canada.
That's mad. That's mad, the same as the United Kingdom. Yeah, that's crazy.
And New York's is as big as South Korea's. The United States also has the best equipped military in the world, though it's only the third largest at 1,282,000 active duty personnel. Ahead of it are India with 1.4 million active duty personnel and China with 2.1 million active duty personnel.
But that's kind of expected because they're countries with a lot of people. With that many people in one country, you're going to expect their military to be big. So it's kind of a expected one with that.
The U.S. spends over $610 billion on its military every year, or 3.1% of its total GDP. 35% of the world's total military expenditure, and more than the next 9 nations combined. Just behind it are China with $150 billion in expenditures and Saudi Arabia with $76 billion in expenditures. The United States also has the most military bases in the most foreign countries in the world, with approximately 800 military installations in 80 countries, possibly more military bases in more foreign lands than any nation or empire in history. The cost of maintaining these bases alone is about $156 billion, more than China spends on its entire military. On the civilian side, the U.S. has the world's 3rd largest police force, with 913,000 total police officers, placing it just behind India at number 1 with 1.9 million police officers, and China with 1.6 million police officers.
Once again, it's because of the size of their countries.
In the realm of healthcare, the U.S. is the most expensive nation on Earth, with a health expenditure per capita of $10,350, placing it ahead of Switzerland at $7,900 and Germany at $5,550. While on average the rest of the world spends about 10.3% of its GDP on healthcare, the US spends 18% of its GDP on healthcare. The United States is a large, complex nation, big enough to host several different distinct accents within its own borders. Its people are hardworking and industrious.
Do you know what? It's a mad thing, like when you think in a country you've got so many different accents. At the same time, it makes a country more involved. You know that it's that difference when you know you're in a different area. But one thing about America is when you go on holiday, you could go on holiday in your own country and it's the equivalent for me going to like Germany or me going across Europe to somewhere else. So yeah, you don't really need to leave because you could travel in the same country and you could go to somewhere with complete different weather to where you live. Do you need a passport then? If you're going to get on a plane and go just to the other side of America to somewhere nice and hot, maybe you live in not so hot area, yeah, do you need a passport for that? Let me know in the comments.
Leading the world's economy. But despite what recent political events might indicate, they're also the most welcoming nation in the world, with 3 times the number of immigrants than nations in either the number 2 or number 3 spot in a global comparison.
So that was a good video. It's good to learn about different parts, you know, because coming from the UK, pretty much all I see is things on TV. It is hard to understand it because for myself in the UK, I've not even travelled to the whole of the UK. I've not even travelled half of the UK. I know looking into like the idea of going to America and I wanted to plan stuff. It's hard to work out where I'll be able to get to and where I'd not be able to get to because you know you'd need to really sit down and plan it if you're going to do a trip because you want to go as many places as you want. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. And feel free to put a comment as well. Let me know what you thought about the video and if there's anything about the video that you want to talk about. But yeah, I will see you on the next reaction.